national jurisdiction. So we hope we can have this conversation and that this conversation also contribute to strengthening regional collaboration and advancing the effective implementation of the BBNJ agreement. So thank you very much. I will give the floor to Maggie.
Thank you, Rizli. We will now begin with the first presentation. It's being done by let me just say, Luana Sega from Global Fishing Watch Brazil. She is the country officer in Brazil. She is an oceanographer, and she will be presenting. The name of the section is called "Scientific Sector Challenges in Advancing the Use of Science and Technology Tools for Policy Development in the Eastern Tropical Pacific." Global Fishing Watch is a very important ally in the implementation of the Sargadon work. So we're very, very thankful for you to be here and to present, and yeah, again.
Hello, everyone. It's okay. Thank you. Well, I'm Luana, as she already presented me. I'm from Global Fishing Watch. I'm country officer here in Brazil. And I'm very pleasure to be here and to can share with you a little about our work. Can you hear me without the microphone? Okay. Okay. So my presentation will be the scientific sector challenges in advance the use of science and technology tools for policy development in the East Tropical Pacific. So briefly, just who we are. Global Fishing Watch is an international organization that uses satellite technologies, machine learning, and data visualization to map all the human activity in the sea. So one of our main objectives is specifically map the human activity in the sea. We also work closely with the government to improve the transparency and the use of new technologies in fisheries management and ocean governance. And we believe that support the greater transparency will increase the sustainable use of the oceans. And we always start our presentations with this phrase that is really important to our work. That is, we cannot manage what we cannot see. So for that, the main objective of the organization is to map the activities in the ocean and also in the high seas. So here I have some challenges that we mapped related to the scientific advance in international waters specifically. So we have three main groups of these challenges. So we have data and transparency ones. That is the main ones. We believe that is the gaps of data and also when the data is not available. So sometimes we have the data, but we don't have the complete data. And here I bring the example. We work with tracking of vessels, so sometimes the VMS or AS or other detection that we use not have the coverage of the whole fleet for a country or for a fleet in general. And also, sometimes we have the data, we have the complete data, but the data is not available, is not public, so we have lack in the transparency. We also have some challenges in capacity and resources. So we have the difficult to monitoring areas in international waters, in this case specifically within the agreement. And because of lack of resources or technology or other issues. We also have lacks in technological infrastructure in the government. So some governments has more technological infrastructure than others. And we also have lacks in training and capacity building across the countries. And the list is the governance and policy. So specifically for the science, one of the main challenges is the translation of scientific data into policy. And at the same time, we have differences between the priorities of the science and of the governments. So between the government, sometimes the ocean conservation is not a priority, and this is a big challenge for scientific and society in general. And for this specific area that we are discussing today, it's a region with multinational governance. So we need coordination between several countries and organizations, and this is also a challenge to have the agreement between all these actors and stakeholders. So in my presentation, I will focus on the challenge of data and transparency, sharing with you some data and information we have available and tools we have available in our map. So Global Fishing Watch are combining different vessel tracking and detection technologies to map the human activity at the sea, as I already mentioned for you. So we have a lot of types of trackings and detections. We work with automatic identification system, that is the AIS, and also with vessel monitoring system, that is the VMS, that is the fisheries tracking of countries. We have today in our map 14 countries that already open their data public, make the data public through our map. We also work with other detections, less optical imagery, nighttime lights, and radar. So our platform provides, we have information since 2012 from all the types of vessels. The data is near in real time. We have a delay of 72 hours for publishing the data. And we work in a way that our platform and all the tools be easily to use and accessible and free to everyone. So we have basically 3 types of layers of information. So we have the human activities for all the human activities, not just for fisheries. And we also work with oceanographic data and biological data. So here I will share with you some images from our map very briefly, just to highlight the types of data and tools we have available. So here is the area of the dome, and we have analysis, for example, for all vessels that are in the AIS tracking system. We have here example of ship detections by VIRS and by SAR. Here is an example of the apparent fishing effort for AIS data through the last year of 2025. We can also make analysis directly into our map about the apparent fishing effort. We can add another layers also, and we have this type of analysis of the evolution of the fisheries activity in a specific area. Here's an example of the VMS data from the governments, the countries. We already have the data public in our map. Here is an example of analysis we can also do in the platform that is about the speed filter. We can filter the vessels by the speed. So in this case, the pink one is the vessels that are in more than 15 knots, and yellow ones is less than 15 knots. So this is also a type of analysis, and it's really useful when we put together species record tracks, so we can see the interaction of the vessels and of the specific species of interest. We can also have analysis about the before and after period of time. So for example, for an analysis in an area that we will have a new MPA or other type of protecting area, we can analyze the activity, the fishing activity before and after the creation. We can also have information specifically about vessels. So in this case is an example of the 5 vessels with more activity in the area, and this is the full tracking for the whole year of these 5 vessels. We can also have the registry information of this vessel in our vessel viewer tool when we have all a lot of information about characteristics, honor, and other information of the vessels. We can combining layers with layers of the activity with other layers. So as I mentioned, we have oceanographic data. So we can, this example of the sea surface temperature and the currents layers. We also have some events for our data from AIS. So we have parent fishing effort, entries, imports, lottering, encounters. And we also can compare, for example, AIS and VMS apparent fishing effort in the same areas. And as I already mentioned, we can upload other tracks, for example, for species or other data. We have all the users can upload their own data and include in the analysis in the platform. And just to highlight that Global Fishing Watch continue updating our platform with feedback by the users. So here I bring to you 3 examples or things we are doing right now. So we just launched new environmental layers for wind and for currents. We have, I think, more than 20 environmental layers right now in the map. It is in under development for the next month, events for VMS data. So these events I just mentioned for you that we have available for AIS data, we will have available for VMS data of each country. And we also working with scientists in a prototype to have status of indicators for species populations in CEMAR MPAs. So CEMAR is area in Pacific for you that don't know. And they have some MPAs there. And the objective is to have levels of indicators, for example, green, red, and yellow, to governments, donors, other stakeholders can see if the MPA is in a good way or not, based on the level of the population of the species that these MPAs should protecting. And to conclude my presentation, I would like to highlight how Global Fishing Watch can offer support to governments and to other organizations to address these challenges that I highlighted in the beginning. So related to data and transparency, we can fill gaps with comprehensive analysis of available data that I show briefly to you here. We are also makes vessel data and fishing and other human activities public through our platform. Related to capacity and resources, we can enable the monitoring of international waters without the need for physical presence. So as I mentioned, it's really difficult to have information of the international waters because of distance, resources, and satellite data provides this information. We also provide information in an accessible way in platform and tools, so are all easy to use and open, public to all. And we are working also in capacity building with the countries. So we provide trainings and courses, not just in how to use our tools, but also in monitoring, control, and surveillance, and also in biodiversity, we focus on design and monitoring of MPAs. And the last one, related to governance and policy, Global Fishing Watch works with the countries in translation of complex data into useful information for policy implementation, also in the implementation of SOPs in process and analysis, internal for governments, and also in the regulations, update or create regulations related to vessel tracking and transparency. And we also support the facilitation of opportunities for collaboration and data sharing between different countries or between different organizations. So in conclusion, I'd like to say that we believe that promoting this transparency, that's public data, it's fundamental to the science to advance, also the capacity building and the training in the use of these new technologies. And this is this means make this fundamental crucial information available for ocean governance and for biodiversity conservation. And we believe this is a crucial principle for the effective implementation of the BBNJ agreement. And I'm happy to answer any questions here if you have time or in other moment during the event. And thank you.
Thank you, Luana. We will be moving on to our next presentation. It will be made by Sara Celaya. Sara is the senior officer, policy officer in AIDA. She's from Honduras. She was part of the delegation of the Honduran delegation during the BBNJ negotiations. So she knows a lot about the subject. And her presentation will be closing in very much of a lot of what Luana said. It's about knowledge gaps and the importance of constructing protection proposals based on inclusive consultations. So the floor is yours, Sara.
Thank you, Maggie, and thank you all for joining us today in this event. Thank you. And it is always a joy and an honor to talk about BBNJ issues and to comment about inclusivity and equity and how this is not just a cross-cutting element of the BBNJ agreement, but also an enabler to reach the objectives of the agreement. So that is the main focus of the presentation, and particularly taking some references to how to assure the participation of indigenous peoples and local communities in these consultations under BBNJ. So the first thing I wanted to say that it's not an easy task for countries, for example, to identify and to address these knowledge gaps. And first we need to understand what it means and how it affects, you know, especially developing countries that faces very special social, economical, and even political scenarios that makes it very hard for them to actually progress when it comes to capacity and knowledge gaps, dissemination of information, and also there's an unequal access to this information. And also this happens at the public governmental level, but also reflects in the civil society and other stakeholders and in the coordination to take decisions. And of course, we have also a very highly technical treaty that requires deep understanding of 4 different pillars that easily could be 4 different treaties in itself. So this, of course, can hinder the performance and the functionality of the governments, the institutions in charge of implementing the treaty, but also it can impact the capacity of stakeholders to participate in an effectively manner. And this also, and this is very important, contravenes some provisions, a lot of provisions in the BBNJ agreement that makes clear the obligations to state parties to make consultations. And of course, since we are talking about a particular case in the Eastern Tropical Pacific region, it's important to talk about what the consultation process under BBNJ agreement says when it comes to part 3, related to the designation of ABMTs and marine protected areas. So this part 3 already states or defines what a relevant stakeholder is. So we need to include, of course, state bodies, global, regional, sub-regional, and sectoral bodies, civil society, scientists, private sector, and indigenous peoples and local communities. So we make sure that their knowledge is also included in this decision making. And the contributions that we expect from these stakeholders is, for example, the geographical scope of the proposal, additional scientific input, if we have already measures or activities being developed in adjacent coastal states or related areas within and beyond national jurisdiction, implications of the proposal for areas within national jurisdiction, elements of the draft management plan, and relevant traditional knowledge. And also this part determines that these contributions shall be considered. So the proposal state party needs to have this into account in a time-bound process, which is also something that is important to say that is being determined right now in the preparatory process that we all know is ongoing in New York through the PrepCom. And also, there's an important role for the Secretariat, for example, that needs to facilitate all of this consultation and make it publicly available. And also the role of the STB, the Scientific and Technical body of the agreement, that that needs to review, do a preliminary review of all the proposals. But also, we cannot leave behind some other consultation processes in the part 2 and part 4 of the BBNJ agreement. So when we're talking about marine genetic resources, there's a very strong language when it comes to accessing the traditional knowledge associated to indigenous peoples and local communities. So we see in the Article 13 that this traditional knowledge needs to be accessed only through a free, prior and informed consent, approval, or involvement of these peoples and communities. And also in the part 4 related to environmental impact assessment, we have references all over the articles that we need to have traditional knowledge of these indigenous peoples, local communities, considered throughout the whole processes, from the screening through the elaboration of the environmental management plan. And also, there's an Article 32 that actually it states what public notification and consultation means, and this is very important, particularly for adjacent and coastal states when it comes to determining if a planned activity must be carried out through the BBNJ agreement framework. And for both cases, we've been hearing a lot about the clearinghouse mechanism in previous panels and events, so it's crucial the role that the clearinghouse mechanism has, and this is also another step that is being taken through the preparatory commission, defining how the first phase of this clearinghouse mechanism is going to be developed in order for state parties to actually fulfill all of these obligations that are already in place since January of this year. And also it's important to mention, and after the panel on traditional knowledge, I'm guessing that everybody is more aware of this, that we need to take into consideration that when it comes to indigenous peoples and local communities, we need to apply a human rights approach, which means that IP needs to be recognized not only as stakeholders, but as right holders. And also the state parties of the BBNJ agreement need to have into consideration some other commitments under other relevant bodies related to human rights, for example, such as Escazú Agreement, which is very much applied to this Eastern Tropical Pacific region, and the ILO Convention 179. And also, this is very important to mention that when we talk about what is relevant traditional knowledge, we need to understand that and recognize, acknowledge that we're talking about biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction that is highly migratory. And of course, because of that, we need to acknowledge the close connection to the livelihoods, the food security of the coastal communities. Some final thoughts to share with you. We need to stop seeing consultations, just a checklist that we need to go through in order to comply with all of the requirements that we see in the annex related to criteria for designating ABMTs and MPAs. And why? Because resistance comes from lack of information and lack of knowledge on a subject, no? In this case, the High Seas Treaty, which can be easily used from an interested part to advocate for an opposition. So if we do not integrate all stakeholders from the very beginning, it's very likely that we're going to have some opposition for these kind of measures. So this takes us also to the need for ask for accountability and transparency from the state parties, the governments, and also the private sector. And also a big responsibility for states is to have clear rules to regulate the participation pathways, which must be, in the case of indigenous peoples, not just mandatory, but legally binding, which is different. And this also connects to the need to have effective national and regional coordination mechanism, which is a big weakness in our region. We need to acknowledge that. And these rules must reflect and respect these principles that we already mentioned, established in other legal frameworks, such as Escazú Agreement. And it's also important to mention that we have also a part 5 of the BBNJ agreement that is related to capacity building and transfer of marine technology. And this component of the agreement plays a key role in order to close these gaps in information, in knowledge, to bring equity and justice to the table of the decision makers. So closing gaps in knowledge and information and ensuring inclusive participation will help us to do this. First, make the BBNJ agreement an instrument that is responsive to the priorities and needs of all state parties, but particularly developing countries and all stakeholders, with special attention to communities, indigenous peoples that are not in the same position as other stakeholders. And it's important to mention that also the BBNJ agreement it tries to bring the traditional and indigenous knowledge to the same level of science, to take best practices and different perspectives coming from these people and communities. And this also would allow us to reach the objectives of the BBNJ agreement through cross-sectoral approaches, coordination at all levels, at the local, national, regional, and global scale. And to close up, I also wanted to mention that in this very wide range of stakeholders list, we need, of course, legal experts, we need marine scientists, we need diplomats, but we also need experts when it comes to traditional knowledge, and we need to have those traditional knowledge holders included in this decision-making table. And so the agreement can actually coordinate properly with all of these different instruments, and so we can actually reach out its full potential to protect our big blue planet and our biggest common good without leaving any communities behind. So this is my stake and my part, so thank you so much.
Gracias, Sara. That was incredibly on time. So thank you very much for that. We will continue with a pun intended deep dive on the thermal dome. It will be presented by Andres Beita. He is the science coordinator at Fundación Mar Viva Costa Rica, and he's part of the scientific team of the Sarga Dome thermal dome component. And he will be presenting the thermal dome as a case study and about the oceanographic dynamics, biodiversity, and ecosystem services of this key ecosystem. So the floor is yours, Andres.
Thank you, Maggie. Well, as Maggie mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about the science behind the thermal dome. Just to give you a little bit of context, during the last few years, a scientist I used to work in Costa Rica, in Mar Viva, Costa Rica, Don Jorge Jimenez, did an amazing job gathering all the information, or most of the information that we have in the thermal dome, all publications and new information, and did this socio-ecological analysis that we have the document almost ready for publication. So this document is like 200 pages, a lot of detailed information. So I'm just going to give you a quick presentation on what is the dome, why it's important, in case that you are not familiar with it. So just to start the dome, there is a very important thing in the creation of the dome, and it's the winds that come from the Caribbean. You see here in the slide in these arrows are the areas in Central America and Mexico that are either narrow or we don't have a lot of mountains like here. A lot of mountains like here. So the wind can go through the continent, and that removes the superior layers of the ocean in the area, and that produces an upwelling of water and, of course, nutrients in this region. So these are very productive areas, and the thermal dome is the biggest one, is the ones that is more permanent and has the lower temperature and the maximum chlorophyll concentration. So besides the winds, once you have all that productivity in the surface, you have also the interaction with the currents that we have in the region that basically surround that productivity and keep it there permanently. So we have a productivity system that is sometimes in the coastal areas and sometimes goes outside of national jurisdictions. This is a representation of the dome. In purple or green, you can see more or less, in this case, the thermocline. So you can see more or less the dome. So you see that at the beginning of the year, you have the dome basically forming in the coastal areas. And then as the year starts to go, you see the zone of productivity going in open waters. So it's a very dynamic system. Then you also have some oceanographic or conditions like El Niño and La Niña phases in the Eastern Tropical Pacific that also affect the distribution or the extent of the thermal dome. For example, in the middle you have, in a normal year where we don't have El Niño or La Niña, the normal extension of the dome. If you have El Niño, you have basically the dome almost disappearing because there are less wind. And if you have La Niña, you have the dome expanding. So we have a very dynamic system that every year changes. And if we have some event like this, we have even more dynamic. So it's a very productive system, as I mentioned before. And this is a different kind of productivity. If you have studied phytoplankton or oceanography, you know that most of the plankton, phytoplankton in the ocean is dominated by diatoms, but it's not the case in the dome. It's a very different kind of phytoplankton, and is one of the highest cell density of this kind of algae in the world. So is a very important productive area. And that, of course, brings a lot of zooplankton. The biomass there is 2 or 3 times higher than outside the dome. So lots of productivity that, of course, connects to a lot of components of the ecosystem and brings a lot of biodiversity. And with this biodiversity, as we're going to see in a couple of minutes, a lot of services. This, of course, this is a very complex ecosystem of designations in the Eastern Tropical Pacific. In pink, you have the ecologically or biologically significant areas. The dome has been designated as such. It's also in purple, important marine mammal area. In yellow, an important area for sharks and rays. And it's close to a lot of protected areas in green. So you see that the dome has already been recognized as an important area by a lot of different entities and is somehow interacting with other protected areas. So this is not only important because biodiversity is beautiful, but also because biodiversity brings economy to the coastal, like bring money or bring a lot of goods, a lot of services to the coastal countries. So, for example, we have blue whale that is important in the area. So we have the dome connecting Central America with North America. In terms of blue whale, we know that blue whales stay there up to 6 months of the year. We have important commercial species, both for commercial fisheries and recreational fisheries, and important species for tourism, for example, turtles and billfishes, for example. And this brings to the coastal economies just to the Central American countries. It's not like a total valuation of the ecosystem, but just what brings to Central American countries. Almost $500 million in commercial fisheries, almost $1,000 million in recreational fisheries, and $122 million in whale watching or marine mammal observation. So this ecosystem brings a lot to the Central American countries. Some of the main activities in the area, like this is a quite old representation, but gives you an idea of the extension of fishing in the Eastern Tropical Pacific, and the dome is right in the middle of it. So in this region, the fisheries are managed by the Inter-American Tropical Tuna Commission. They do a great work assessing and managing these fisheries, but there's still some issues to resolve there, some unreported fisheries, some emerging fisheries like squid that we have heard that is starting in the area that we probably need to address deeper. Another important activity in the dome is the marine transportation. We have very close the Panama Canal, so we have almost 6% of the marine traffic, global marine traffic going through the dome. So that is a very important activity, and you see here some of those lines from Global Fishing Watch data. There is the animation, so you can see vessels going through and also vessels fishing here that we can see all the activity in the area. So there is a lot of marine traffic happening there, mostly cargo ships and tankers. Fishing vessels are the minority of the vessels in the area. And we know that at more than 15 knots, the probability of a lethal injury of a marine mammal encountering a boat or a vessel is the more than 80%. And we have still a lot of, this is an example for a few years, but we have a lot of vessels going more than 15 knots. So that represents a real threat to marine biodiversity there, especially marine mammals. So with all the information, as I said, I'm just going through quick so you have an idea of the importance of the dome, but with all the information that we have gathered in the socio-ecological analysis, we have been able to map a little bit all the most important activities happening in the dome. What are the main pressures there that are causing on which components of the ecosystems? You see that fishing, shipping are probably the most important human activities happening there that we should probably put some attention into it. So just to conclude, I just wanted I hope this presentation showed that it's a very dynamic ecosystem, that is a very unique ecosystem, that is biodiverse and important, not just because of the biological importance, but also for economies in the region, and that also is vulnerable, and we should probably do something about it. So that would be it. Thank you very much.
We will now continue with a small, really short video about the thermal dome. It's almost a premiere now. And just like a very, very quick commercial break, we have these BBNJ treaty guides that you can take home. We have them both in English and Spanish. So if you want a copy, please just go ahead and tell us at the end of the event. The issue with the sound. And a false alarm. We will be showing the video at the end while we solve the issues with the audio. We will be moving on with the presentation. Sonia will be next. Sonia is the project coordinator at the Sargadon project at Mar Viva. She is an expert in international ocean governance, and she will be presenting the about the thermal dome as an opportunity for cross-sectorial cooperation. So just, yeah, we're gonna move here the presentation and yeah. Yeah.
Okay, hi, good afternoon to all of you. I'm very glad to see you here, and thanks for joining us. The idea of my words today is to show you a little bit of the work that we have done and to share with you our sense in seeing the thermal dome as an opportunity to collaborate and to work in a cooperation manner with different sectors and stakeholders and institutions, governments, etc. But first of all, I would like to share with you some challenges that we have identified in the governance for this unique area. As Andres has explained to you, the different dynamics and the feature of the dome that is dynamic in nature, depending on the season of the year and where you want to explore it. So this poses us a very huge challenge because the traditional management strategies become insufficient. They are not able to reflect the needs that this area is requiring for an effective management of the species and the ecosystem services that it provides. So also, as we know, the thermal dome encompasses multiple regimes because it is within and beyond national jurisdiction. So this poses the biggest threat, I would say, because we have to deal with the national regimes for environmental protection, but also with other sectors, laws and regulations, but also in terms of stakeholders and institutions and different regimes that we have to deal with. So this poses like a mix of a set of actors and disposition that we have to see how to manage and to find a way to protect the thermal dome in the best way, having all this mix of regimes, legal regimes, and different activities that take place in there. As I mentioned already, we have different legal frameworks. Of course, in the high seas we have the BBNJ treaty, but in the national waters we have a very huge variety of national regulations that we have to deal with and to explore with national governments how to be able to coordinate with them to achieve the effective and the real management measures to achieve the conservation's objectives that we have in this area. And this is why the concept that I already mentioned in the panel yesterday of dynamic ocean management is required for this area, because no static traditional management regimes are able to provide the sufficient tools, management tools that we need for this site. So we have seen this area and this project as a very huge opportunity to set up a new model of hybrid governance of asset combined with different sectors, different institutions, and different levels of coordination, because we have in the thermal dome clear clear seasonal patterns in human activities, for example, fishing, maritime navigation, species cycling, but also clear seasonal patterns in the distribution of the species, because we have that science already in the table. So these allow us to propose a dynamic management across the different sectors in different times of the year, to be able to respond in a better way to this dynamic feature of the thermal dome, in order to protect the species, the ecosystem services, and the processes that take place in this area in a better way. Because if we use the traditional schemes for management, we won't fail in protecting them in the better way and in the way that they need to be protected. So and also another opportunity is that, of course, as a consequence of the earlier mentioned, is that current governance does not reflect this ecological connectivity that Andres has already showcased to you, given the different and the very big amount of migratory species that we have in this area and across the whole area of the Pacific Ocean. So building a hybrid network, as I mentioned yesterday, considering ABMTs, including MPAs, within jurisdictional waters, but also the ones that will be declared and established in in high seas, will be the key to effectively protect this area and these species and ecosystem services. So this has been done with a lot of coordination among different sectors, institutions, stakeholders. We have been able to collaborate with the Central American countries mainly, within different sectors, maritime authorities, the fishing sector, stakeholders, also shipping sector, the private sector. So we have been able to spread the word and encourage this continent, this Central American country, to build up a path to propose a particularly sensitive sea area for this area, this thermal dome area in the high seas specifically, and they have been very committed to work in this path. They have created a technical liaison committee from the maritime authorities in this region. They have shown very high political support. We have been also working with fishing, foreign affairs, environment, protected areas agencies, trades, commerce, and a lot of stakeholders and institutions with different levels working in local and regional and global level, of course, to coordinate with them. We have been able to follow up and support the dialogue, the regional dialogue that they have been conducting. And this is like a summary in the photos of of decisions that we have been doing around the region to raise awareness about the importance of the regional approach for working together in the protection of this area. So this is the photo of the different countries that we have visited. Next later will be Italo, which will talk about the commitment from Honduras as the lead country of this proposal, and the leading country giving expertise and lessons learned in this process to build this proposal of the PSSA to present it to the IMO in the upcoming months or a year at least. And also, we have been able to contribute to the proposal of a network, which is the RAMPAs declared by the Permanent Commission of the CPPS, which is the Central American Permanent. No. The South Pacific Permanent Commission, which is sorry, because it is in Spanish. We have been able to contribute to this proposal, and the idea is that the thermal dome, given its location, will be part of this huge network of MPAs along the Pacific. We have been able to participate in the sessions of the preparatory commission of the BBNJ, raising the importance of another important side of the thermal dome, which is the World Heritage value, the outstanding universal value that this site has. And also in terms of fishing sector, we have been able to initiate interesting conversation with the fishing sector. We presented a very interesting article and poster in a workshop at the FAO. So the idea is to show you how this project has been able to gather a lot of stakeholders, institutions, governments, and we have been working with all of them to progress and to implement this hybrid management scheme that we are promoting for this area, and the thermal dome as a key site for implement this. So this is the message that I wanted to share with you, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end. Thank you.
Gracias, Sonia. In any case, Real Madrid is beating Manchester City 2-0. We will be having a presentation by Italo Bonilla. He is the head of Maritime Port Environmental Management in the General Directorate of the Merchant Marine in Honduras. He used to work with Sara, actually. And his presentation is actually being to a deeper dive on what Sonia was mentioning about the PSSA proposal that is being led by Honduras. And the presentation is called Strategic Relevance of a Regional Approach for the Protection and Governance of the Thermal Dome. Italo, the floor is yours. Estamos escuchando por aquello. Estás muteado.
Hello, can everyone hear me well? Thank you. Let me see if I can present here. There you go. Okay. As we know, the Eastern Tropical Pacific region has long been recognized as one of the most productive marine ecosystems on Earth. Today, we are going to talk about how the scientific knowledge and the regional cooperation have gradually evolved into a concrete governance proposal using the Central American thermal dome as a case of study. There you go. As previous presenters mentioned, the Eastern Tropical Pacific region is a dynamic oceanographic process, very important because of the migratory corridors, and is characterized by complex support of high levels of biodiversity and productivity. This region is also major for migratory corridor for marine species, including the tuna, yellowfin tuna, marine mammals, and sea turtles as well. The thermal dome is not a fixed geographic feature, but a dynamic oceanographic phenomenon, as we already learned from previous presentations. And it forms through the interaction of regional wind patterns and ocean currents, creating an area of upwelling rich in nutrients. The scientific importance, the scientific research over several decades has shown that the thermal dome functions as a biological hotspot in the high seas areas. It concentrates species that are ecological and economical important for all the countries. The thermal dome from the thermal dome as an initiative has evolved through sustained collaboration between government along Central American countries, NGO, international organization, and very important, the scientific community. But what we have challenged, we have spotted some governance challenge in the process. The thermal dome highlights and a typical governance challenge are the ecosystems that are ecological connected, but institutionally fragmented. This is a problem that we have spotted because of the whole idiosyncrasy of the Central American countries and also the bureaucracy that we can find in governmental entities. So how the opportunities under the BBNJ agreement. As Sarah mentioned, we have the area-based management tools, the marine protected areas, the scientific cooperation, and the capacity built-in technological transfer. These are like new opportunities to strengthen the conservation measures in areas beyond national jurisdiction. The regional policy initiative has been essential to build a common vision around what we call the thermal dome from Central America. The participating countries at the moment come from Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica, and Panama. Costa Rica and Honduras have been working very together in order to make a proposal to the IMO. And this is how we are trying to connect it. The IMO PSSA, as mentioned before, is a framework that offers a complementary mechanism to strengthen the protection of the ecological significant marine areas affected by international shipping. So we are trying to prepare a common, a regional proposal and elevate it to the IMO and establish the thermal dome as a PSSA. What we have learned, one of the most important lessons for the thermal dome initiative is that scientific knowledge alone is not enough. We need to design must guide the policy. That's very important. The regional cooperation is essential, but also the multi-institutional coordination is very required. And then we have the international legal frameworks that can complement each other. As experience, the thermal dome shows that how regional initiatives can contribute to the implementation of the global agreements, such as this, the BBNJ agreement. What we had forward very much is like strengthen the science policy. This is very important to strengthen the science policy interface that it will probably remain a little bit critical. And then we have the thermal dome offers a practical example and how science and knowledge can translate into a concrete governance initiative. So this is what we have been working together as a region pretty much. And we are planning to elevate this proposal probably next year, as Sonia mentioned. The work and the race hasn't been easy, but we are planning or we are overseeing that we will be able to achieve this proposal. Thank you very much for your attention.
Do you hear me? Okay. It works and sometimes when it wants to. Our last presentation will be by Professor Ronald Long. He is the director of the World Maritime University. And he will be presenting about the ICG advisory opinion on climate change and the BBNJ agreement.
Thank you very much, and congratulations. We've got there, we've 10 minutes left, and congratulations to Murray. It's been really wonderful to be here with the BBNJ community. Am I up? No. No. What's the video, no? You changed the presentation. No? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll keep it brief if we can get there. Oh, that's fine. I'm going the wrong way. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's just maybe slightly different from what we've heard this afternoon and maybe over the last 2 days. First and foremost, I'd say, in relation to climate change, this is the major challenge to be faced by the oceans community. And I'd start by pointing out that the the Paris Agreement has only one mention of oceans in the preamble, and that's thanks to Nilofer Oral as a negotiator that included that. The climate COP hasn't really engaged with ocean issues. Actually, the first mention of oceans was in the Glasgow Agreement, where we have a specific reference to oceans by the climate COP. Now, what we see... no, I don't think so. Yeah. Yeah, what we see in terms of oceans and climate is evolving. And I think when I came to the university first in Sweden, we organized a conference with our colleagues in Berkeley on oceans and climate. And we invited, amongst others, Professor Roger Zetter, who is the kind of global human rights expert on human migration. And he really said, right, the kind of human rights dimension to climate change was going to be the most pressing issue. And in the slide you can see beside Roger's Zetter is David Freestone. Of course, David has devoted most of his life on trying to bring these two regimes together in a legal sense. And indeed, I was very honored to be a co-editor of a corpus of essays to honor David's work in this in relation to climate and oceans. Now, I think, right, we've heard very clearly this afternoon from Andreas, right, that the relationship between the climate system and, for instance, the thermal dome and its associated biodiversity are essentially two elements. Firstly, as an upwelling system, it plays an important role in the climate system, helping to mediate climate change. And then conversely, climate change has major impacts on the thermal dome and its associated biodiversity. Now, it's a two-way street. And I suppose I would come back to Lisa's wonderful keynote yesterday, indeed David's panel, where you've pointed out that the BBNJ is really a groundbreaking instrument, that we have these very important substantive obligations in relation to climate change, as well as a very coherent statement in the preamble that this is one of the great challenges, which is to be addressed in a coherent and cooperative manner. And I think David yesterday again identified this very important principle that's set out in Article 7, and it's shown on the left-hand side of the slide there is that's an approach that builds ecosystems resilience, including the adverse effects of climate change and ocean acidification, and also maintains and restores ecosystems integrity, including carbon cycling services that underpin the role of the ocean and climate. Now, when you look at the provisions, I think it's important that there are other very significant references in the BBNJ agreement, and I would highlight there is the polluter pays principle, and that's going to be quite important in the context of enforcement and compliance in due course. Bearing in mind that the BBNJ agreement doesn't have a liability mechanism, but it has a number of tools, including area-based management tools, including MPAs, EIA, and strategic assessment, and has certain obligations in relation to capacity building and technology transfer. Now, what I would say is that a BBNJ agreement is obviously has its own evolutionary cycle, where we will see perhaps the most important developments will be within the framework of the institutional setting. In particular, decisions made by the COP, which will have shall we say, a very important bearing on climate change mitigation and adaptation measures. Now, where we've seen a major change in the law is we've had a number of advisory opinions, and these were referenced already today by Nilofer. I'll highlight here in the slide, we've had the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea in Hamburg has a very clear and a very strong advisory opinion in relation to the obligations on climate change and the law of the Sea Convention. But what I would like to highlight is this really groundbreaking advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice in 2025. Believe it or not, this started with a group of students in the Pacific. The Pacific Island students fight against climate change. And they convinced the government of Vanuatu to support UN UNGA resolution to refer questions to the Court of Justice. And Costa Rica was amongst the core group that supported that. And I've summarized on the slide there as to what the findings of the court were, which is that states have binding legal obligations under both treaty and customary law. They also have a duty to cooperate, and then there are specific obligations in relation to state parties of the Law of the Sea Convention. I think the advisory opinion is really groundbreaking, and perhaps we can contribute some of that success to the very carefully crafted questions. Firstly, on the obligations of states, and then secondly, on the legal consequences. Extraordinarily, the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Russian Federation argued in their written pleadings and their oral pleadings a very narrow interpretation of international law, that the obligation should only be read in light of the climate change treaties, and we have 3 treaties on climate change. Now, the court took a far more expansive approach, and they looked not only at the climate change treaties, but they also looked at the Charter itself, at the Convention, the ozone layer treaties, Biodiversity Convention, and of course, very importantly, customary rules, customary duty to prevent significant harm to the environment, and indeed the duty to cooperate. Now, I'd emphasize this because we will have very powerful members of the maritime world who will not become party to the BBNJ agreement, but they will still be bound by the customary duty not to prevent significant harm to the environment, and indeed the duty to cooperate. Crucially, the court found that there is the international human rights law to protect the environment and the entitlement to a clean and healthy environment and a sustainable environment. And then the court identified a number of principles, including sustainable development, common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities, equity, intergenerational equity, precautionary approach, and indeed principle. It also set out a number of legal consequences which are quite technical. It didn't have to make a decision as to, shall we say, the large emitters, but shall we say the legal consequences, and these findings are very important because I think they will have a strong bearing as to what comes next in terms of litigation. Final thoughts on this is climate change and biodiversity loss are part of a highly complex and interrelated phenomena. They both concern existentialist challenges of planetary proportions. Now, in the context of the thermal dome, I'd reference Andreas' wonderful presentation. Thermal dome and indeed those other upwelling systems in the Eastern Caribbean are a natural ally in the fight against climate change. Likewise, the 2 presentations that we had from both Davids in relation to the Sargasso Sea. And now from that we can say that there is a duty to protect and build the crucial functions of the dome as a carbon sink and reservoir in climate mitigation. And I can think that this is central to states' obligations in combating climate change under the climate change treaties, other environmental treaties, the Law of the Sea Convention and the BBNJ agreement, as well as states' customary international law obligations to prevent significant harm to the environment. And crucially, when interpreting the BBNJ agreement, what do we learn? I think we can learn right from the approach of the court and the climate change, both opinions, both the ETLAS and the international courts, is that you can draw upon the entire legal system prevailing at the time of interpretation, including climate change treaties and other biodiversity instruments. It goes back to a point that Sonia made yesterday. It's really, irrespective of what movement we have on ABMTs and so forth under a BBNJ agreement, what we really have to start working on is those other obligations, the obligations such as CMS, CITES, and so forth. And it's this systemic approach to international environmental law, which is very much to the fore now in the context of the climate change advisory opinion. And I suppose which is very significant because we heard it today on a number of panels about the human rights dimension. And, you know, one of these most significant findings that we've had in international environmental law, which is codified in the Costa Rica Constitution, is that the right to a clean, healthy and sustainable environment results from the interdependence between human rights and the protection of the environment. And I think this notion of interdependence is crucially important. And maybe lastly, we get very clear guidance from the advisory opinion on what constitutes best available science, and that's a key concept under the BBNJ agreement, and of course the issue of cumulative impacts. And amongst those cumulative impacts are climate change impacts. Lastly, I don't think over the last 2 days that there hasn't been enough attention about really kind of building the numbers for BBNJ accession and bringing up the state parties numbers. Like by way of example, I mean, the convention itself is 172 parties. That's 171 states in the European Union. Part 11, the mining regime is 155 states parties. Fish stocks agreement has 95 states parties. BBNJ, I think as of yesterday, 86 parties. And indeed, maybe 36 SIDS and LDCs, 51 yet to go. Quite a lot of work yet left in relation. You know, if it's going to be universal, you really need everybody on board. First and foremost, maybe just pay those for developed states to pay to support the treaty, but developing states, I suppose, in this kind of formative period for the institutions. Lastly, we have a number of events coming up, including a BBNJ clinic workshop in the Seychelles in April, and I will be looking forward to seeing some of you there. And we're delighted to be working on BBNJ issues, and great to support the Sargasso Sea and the Costa Rica Thermal Dome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we will now attempt again to play the video. Let's see.
En aguas del Pacífico centroamericano se localiza una maravilla del océano, el domo térmico. Es una de las zonas marinas más ricas del planeta. El domo térmico se produce cuando los vientos alisios empujan el agua superficial del mar en la costa pacífica de Centroamérica, provocando un ascenso de aguas frías y cargadas de nutrientes desde las profundidades hacia la superficie. Ese ascenso, mantenido mar adentro por la acción de los vientos, se refleja en líneas de temperatura del agua que adoptan una forma de campana o domo que le da nombre a este extraordinario fenómeno. El domo no es un sistema estático. Al contrario, está en constante movimiento. Al inicio del año se encuentra más cerca de la costa de Centroamérica, mientras que a mediados de año se encuentra en aguas internacionales y llega a cubrir parte de las aguas territoriales desde el sur de México hasta el norte de Costa Rica. Su tamaño también es variable y aumenta o disminuye dependiendo de la época del año. En su nivel máximo de extensión puede alcanzar hasta 1 millón de kilómetros cuadrados. Esa alta concentración de nutrientes presente en el domo hace que sea un espacio vital para la alimentación, reproducción y migración de diversas especies marinas, incluyendo delfines, ballenas, tiburones, tortugas, mantarrayas y peces. El domo tiene grandes beneficios para los seres humanos. Las microalgas presentes en el sitio ayudan en la fijación de carbono, lo que lo convierte en aliado ante los efectos del cambio climático. También tiene un impacto económico importante, Las especies asociadas al domo hacen que actividades económicas como pesca comercial, pesca deportiva y avistamiento de especies generen millones de dólares al año para las economías de la región. Sí, el domo térmico tiene mucha relevancia biológica y socioeconómica, pero es poco conocido y altamente explotado. Amenazas como la sobrepesca, pesca ilegal, tráfico marítimo poco regulado, cambio climático y contaminación ponen en riesgo al domo y sus recursos. La vulnerabilidad del domo hace urgente que la gobernanza de este sitio tenga un enfoque ecosistémico, con una visión regional y global. El domo ya ha sido reconocido como una área de significado ecológico y biológico. Un sitio de esperanza por Mission Blue, área de importancia para mamíferos marinos, área de importancia para tiburones y rayas por parte de la Unión Internacional para la Conservación de la Naturaleza. Por eso, las autoridades regionales y organizaciones intergubernamentales están realizando esfuerzos para protegerlo, pero aún queda camino por recorrer. Definitivamente, el domo térmico tiene un papel importante en el océano y en la vida del planeta. Merece más protección y atención. ¿Quieres conocer sobre el domo térmico? Visita www.marviva.net y www.sargadon.com.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining and for being part of the journey of the thermal dome and the rest of the examples of the Eastern Tropical Pacific. We need to leave in 5 minutes, otherwise we are sleeping here. So we will have time for 2 questions. And of course, tomorrow you can talk a bit more with our presenters. So yeah, maybe we can take 2 questions super fast. Or everything was very clear? Or you're scared that we're going to sleep here today? We don't leave in 4 minutes. All good? Okay, well, no, thank you very much for your time, for your interest, and yeah, we will be happy to keep talking about the thermal dome in the rest of the days. Ciao, ciao. Thank you.